Welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers, hosted by Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner.
Hi, welcome to Squirrel Podcast for Distracted Writers. I am Candace.
Hi, and I'm Jody.
Today, this is our episode 3. We're going to talk about characters and how to make them a little bit more flavorful.
Are you secretly turning into a cannibal on us?
I totally am.
Don't eat characters, Candy. They don't like it.
I said write characters while hungry.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, like when you're at the grocery store and all of a sudden you come home and you have like 3 bags of Doritos and your husband's like, wow, you must have been hungry. And cookies and soda pops, all the things. There was a funny discussion that I had when it's a couple of years ago when somebody asked me what they thought I might taste like. And I think this is when
Tastes like chicken.
I know this sounds weird. It was back when I was writing my vampire novel and where I had to actually think about kind of recipes. I know this sounds really weird.
Just a little gross, but yeah, sure. Go on.
Well, my character has a kind of an allergy to blood. So I had to get really creative on what they were going to eat. But anyway, that's the basis of this conversation of what we might taste like. I know what I might taste like. What do you think that you would taste like, Jody? Because I already know what I think you should taste like.
A lot of garlic. Definitely. Something high in carbs. I'm pasta.
Yeah, I put, what did I put? Spicy ramen noodles.
That works. Add a little egg.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that I would taste like Sweet Tarts.
Yes. Maybe a Pop-Tart. Count Chocula.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Dr.
Any
Pepper.
kind of chocolate cereal. Yes, Dr. Pepper for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that food kind of tells a story of itself. You know, what we eat kind of defines kind of a little bit about us. You know, I know I have kind of a sweet demeanor, but that's why I might like be put as Skittles or Sweet Tarts, but I'm also a sugaraholic for sure.
Agreed.
I'm chocolate.
So when we're talking about the flavors of characters, so are there characters that stand out to you that are like really boring and bland? Like who's the oatmeal of a character?
Okay, don't hate me. I'm not a Marvel person. Okay.
Them's fighting words.
But I know I'm not a Marvel person. I will be honest. It takes a lot of time, and I had books to write. So I kind of fell off the Marvel bandwagon because I just didn't have the time to put toward it. But I would like to say I wanted to make sure that I got characters that people would recognize, and I like any Disney princess in the 1940s.
Oh dear. When the princesses were furniture?
Yes. And in Marvel, I think that Superman and Captain America kind of just don't have that kind of flaws, you know?
We're going to have people coming after us with pitchforks. Thank you.
I mean, this is not I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm trying to point out characters. So let's look at Thor in the first movie where he had to be this kind of straight, God that had this specific moral code, and this is what he followed. And then let's take Ragnarok, where all of a sudden Thor is a completely different type
and funny.
Yeah, you added a depth of character. There was a different kind of flavor to it. I know that people maybe didn't like Ragnarok because of that, but I, as not a Marvel person, really liked Ragnarok.
It's one of the few I've watched. I, like you, don't have the time commitment to really dive into all of the world that is Marvel. Mm-hmm. So I can appreciate that. So on the other side of the coin, we need a couple flavors that are super, like, flavorful and interesting.
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh gosh, anything that Neil Gaiman writes.
Oh my
Any
gosh.
of Neil Gaiman's
Right?
characters are absolutely incredible, and
Yes.
I might have a tiny crush on his Good Omens characters, like
Oh, right?
Aziraphale and Crowley. I want them in my pocket.
Are you talking more
all
of
the
the
time.
of the book, or are you talking more of the series?
Well, I've read both of them, and they complement themselves so nicely.
Yes.
But David Tennant is a dream, and so is Michael Sheen. So,
cute.
I
agree.
heard here first.
I really like V.E. Schwab's characters. They always have a specific kind of spice to them. They always have like something wrong, something that they are ashamed of. Those kind of flaws really build up a character in any of her novels. I've really liked anything that she's done, basically, when it comes to character building. So here's some words for you. Salty. What makes a person salty?
Oh goodness! Like you just hear salty, and you'll have somebody pop into your brain. You're like, that person's so salty. Like coworkers. It's somebody who's a little bit disagreeable.
Other writers, yeah.
Somebody who's easily offended. Someone who might be willing to jump into a brawl at the first like possible insult. Like someone who's salty is going to be someone who you probably don't want to spend a lot of time around because they're a little volatile.
Yeah, it's a little abrasive.
They're a little abrasive.
Yeah.
How about like someone who is sweet?
Sweet. That's easy. Sweet is like they're nice or charming to a point. They might be a little maybe a pushover, someone that you maybe not want to spend a lot of time with because they're just too gross or too like it's too much sweetness. They're too kind. They I don't know.
Cloying. They're like syrup.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm describing myself here.
It's okay, Pop-Tart. We still love you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, spicy.
Oh goodness,
You're
I
my
love
spicy
spicy because spicy is like there's a little bit of there's heat. There might be you're not quite sure how they're going to react, but you know it's going to be a fun ride. And they might be one that's going to use a little bit of language, or they're going to get you in trouble, but it's going to be fun.
They have the adventure streak in them. You know, maybe because as a spicy person, maybe you dare to have that chipotle that's a little bit has more heat, or
Adventure is out there.
the hot Thai food. I'm not sure.
I do like spicy food.
Yeah, well, see, that was good. What about a saucy person?
Ooh, saucy. I think saucy and spicy, they go hand in hand a lot.
Okay.
I want to say saucy is going to be a little bit more manipulative, perhaps. A little bit more having an agenda, having something that they want to get out of it. So, yeah.
I think it's so funny that we're talking about food. Do you ever watch people? Like, I am a big people watcher, especially when I'm in like a hospital cafeteria. I watch people all the time, or what they order in their food tells me a story about them. Do you get that?
Says the woman who eats the center out of her pancakes.
See, and that's the thing. So you know something about me. I like the butter. The butter like melts in the middle, and then you put the syrup on it, and so you just kind of eat the good parts. And if it doesn't get on the outside, you're just going to eat the good, yummy,
You probably
mushy
eat the
part.
center of your cinnamon roll first, too. Blasphemy.
No.
You have to work for that. You have to get to
cinnamon
that.
rolls, I peel. I peel off and I eat the frosting first, and probably just the frosting and not like the bottom doughy part.
Fine. So why would we want to not subscribe? Why would we want to give our characters a food attribute, like a flavor attribute? Why is that going to help us in the writing process to kind of figure out what kind of emotional flavors our characters are going to have?
Isn't that funny? Food makes us relax. Did you know that? Like when we have a specific food in front of us, we act differently. We have like when you're holding a pop can or if you're holding an apple. So in theater, when I was in theater, we would do food rehearsals. And what a food rehearsal is just you incorporating food into the play, basically. And then the reason why is because you get a better character growth when they're eating food. You get which is so weird, but food is just such a important part of who we are that you become a better character just by eating. Or we hid drinks in the couch, or we would roll oranges across the stage. I mean, we would have great times during food rehearsals, but sometimes that food would come into play if it made sense and if it was a natural thing and it made the scene better, then we would do that. Oh, have you ever? Okay, I'm going to go to Ocean's 11. Okay, let's talk about Brad Pitt's character.
Oh, dear.
Brad Pitt was always eating. That was part of his character. Now, whether he brought that up to the character or it was actually written in the script, which I think it probably wasn't. It was just something that was incorporated because but it's very important for his character to always be eating.
Never really thought about it.
Yes.
But we were talking Marvel before. Robert Downey Jr. always snuck food on set, and he would offer it to the other characters during the takes.
See? Yes. And that's an important character attribute. Right? And people, when we're writing, we don't think about food. I'll be honest. If you're doing a fantasy novel, what kind of food do you have?
Oh, goodness. Everyone's like
trail
stew.
Nuts and stew and...
No, we'll have a whole episode about why you can't have stew in fantasy voyages, by the way. No, I lately have dived into adding a lot of really glorious food into my stories because if I hit the right kind of food combinations and hubby just happens to read those sections, he will make them.
Oh my goodness.
He is inspired by what he reads or what he sees, and all of a sudden he's like, that sounds amazing, let's do it. And so I have been known to sneak in yummy little tidbits because I know it makes him happy. Mm-hmm. And it makes me happy too.
That is so great. Have you ever read a book that just kind of, not that it incorporated recipes, because I know that sometimes like those cat mysteries or baking mysteries will have like recipes with it.
Absolutely. It's a whole thing.
Have you ever read a book that just really made you hungry or made you want, or made you actually overly sweet? I know I have read those books. Have you?
Okay. So the Redwall series, they had the most amazing feasts.
That's the one with the mice, right?
Yeah, the mice.
Yeah.
And so they had all these animals having these incredible feasts. And to this day, I want a candied chestnut so bad. You can't get them anywhere. But they would talk about all foods glistening with like these glazes and sauces and gravies. And so if you read the end of my trilogy, the last book actually has a feast in it because I couldn't help it. I had to.
That's lovely. That is great. I just read a book called Midnight in Everwood. Now, this was a retake of The Nutcracker, okay? And it's kind of a portal fantasy where she gets shot into this fantasy world that is The Nutcracker, okay? So it is specifically description. You've got frosting everywhere and sugar-coated and everything is decadent. And after a while, I was just like, this is too much. I've like just gained 10 pounds reading this book just because it was like so much description. So that's another thing that I think, not that we're talking about food because we are trying to talk about character here.
I was going to just bring our topic back to characters.
Yes, I know.
But I'm enjoying this too. So, and now, a word from our sponsor. Thank you for listening. This episode was recorded at the Farmhouse Recording Studio in Bluffdale, Utah.
When you put a character in a fantasy world, I think it's also important to recognize what they have around them, what kind of food they have around them, just to help build up their character. Here's a question for you. Okay, in your character development, do you think about what they eat, or what they are allergic to?
Well, I think of how a culture is going to eat or a specific biome. So, like, yes, my original fantasy series was in kind of a medieval Europe. And so it was a lot of those traditional potato-y, kind of meaty, root vegetable kind of foods. And that was not a leap too far. But this new thing I'm working on, it's based in an oasis in the middle of the desert. What do they eat there? How do they bring the foods in? What spices do they use? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is so yummy. Because I am a foodie. I love food. and so finding all of these little yummy tidbits and being like, what does this character like? Do they want a spiced curry lamb? Do they want things that are shish kebabbed and cooked over wood? Like all of these just absolutely yummy things. And I've traveled back east. I've traveled in the Middle East back before it was dangerous, barely. And got to experience like the food stalls in an open market and the smells and these conical piles of spices that are so beautiful and perfect and colorful. And so being able to draw from that creates this otherworldly experience that you are grounding the reader into using the senses of smell and taste. And by doing that, it draws them into the character because nothing is more, dare I say, intimate than taste and smell. Like smell evokes memory.
Yeah, you're right. If I think about what my mother smells like, I think about her bread, you know?
And my mom always wore a specific perfume. She loved the Estee Lauder white linen. And then every once in a while, if she was feeling extra, she would do an Oscar de la Renta. And I can't remember exactly which fragrance. It might have just been the signature fragrance. And so when she passed, I wanted to go through her stuff and find those perfumes before my family cleared out everything and got rid of it. And so, yeah, I still have those, and I can't bring myself to smell them yet because it's a little too raw still.
Right. So when I was creating characters, I did give them specific aversions. Like I have a character in my fantasy series that won't eat anything green, and that's a purposefully thought out thing because it does come into his character later on that he won't eat specific things, if that makes sense. Right? I know that sounds really dumb, but also like if you think of a character loving, like I was talking to my daughter about a character that she was in this play called Puffs. And one of the things that she brought to her character is that she decided that this character's favorite food was Doritos because she just liked triangles. Aww. And so bringing in this kind of simplicity of what would bring to a character, not just their specific kind of food that they eat, but also just the elegance of how they think and act and toward food or toward what might be their favorites.
Real people have favorite foods. Your character should have favorite foods or food aversions. I have a friend who will not eat sandwiches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, that is like the base unit of food. How do you feed yourself?
Yeah.
And it was just so astounding to me. Wouldn't eat sandwiches. And to this day, I'm just like, let's go to Subway. And she's like, and no. Let's get pizza. I'm like, pizza is a sandwich if you fold it.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that's really what I wanted to talk about when it came to adding spice to your characters. Do you feel that we actually incorporated a lot of spice into characters? Or did we just talk about recipes and food? Did it just make everyone hungry?
Well, I'm hoping we inspired people to think about a different level of character development that they might not have considered before. Because everyone's like, oh, my character, eye color, check, hairstyle, check, height, check, build, check. Like, yeah, that's the obvious stuff. But that doesn't bring them to life. Like if you do that as a laundry list on the page, your reader's eyes are going to glaze over and you're going to lose them. But immediately you say, this is Carlos and Carlos can't stand bananas. All of a sudden, Carlos just got real.
Yes.
And you can actually start seeing this fellow named Carlos who just does not like bananas.
Yep.
And And it gives you something to hang on to that's not just this weird laundry list of descriptions. It is this thing that is very intrinsic to them that's interesting.
Oh, I'm so glad you understood what I was trying to go for here in this episode.
Why, thank you.
Now let's go have some lunch because now I'm really hungry. Okay.
Sounds terrific. So, again, thank you guys all for coming and listening today. This has been the Squirrel Podcast for Distracted Writers. Our next episode is all about writing sprints.
Oh my goodness. I'm already tired. My legs already hurt.
Episodes that I tend to bring are going to be very practical, and so this one's going to be very practical.
Oh, mine are going to be zany. We all know that.
It's fun.
I'm excited to talk about it. So,
all right. Have a terrific rest of your day, and we look forward to sharing things with you in the future.
Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the Squirrel Podcast for the Distracted Writer with Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. This episode was recorded at the Farmhouse Recording Studio. Please like and subscribe to our podcast for updates and new episodes, and find more information at our website, squirrelpodcast.com. Stay distracted, everyone.
Seeing's not the right word.
Squirrel!
Squirrel!